My name is Vinnie Cimino. We are here in the Ohio Beef Council kitchen. Right now we have this beautiful certified Angus beef picanha steak. We call it picanhas. Also goes by culotte, top sirloin. What we love about this particular cut is all of this beautiful fat. Certified Angus beef is very near and dear to my heart and our hearts here in Ohio because it is based out of Worcester, Ohio. The fun thing about that is that we get to know our farmers. We get to build these relationships with these cattlemen and be able to see our beef from start to finish, and then really truly be able to celebrate those ingredients on our plate. The first thing that we do with this particular cut, because it's thick like this, we want to let it rest at room temperature. We want to bring it up to temperature before we put it into our hot skillet. So right now I'm going to season this steak very aggressively with diamond kosher salt. Like I said, very liberally, and almost kind of rub in it, especially into that fat. I'll flip this over, and you can kind of see the different grains going on here. After we get this seasoned and let it rest, we're actually going to cut this into steaks so we can put it into our pan, and then we'll kind of get down into how we cut with the grain to start, so we can then finish with a product that we're cutting against the grain to serve to our friends and family. Again, we're just gonna set this off to the side right now and allow this to continue to come up to room temperature so we can get those good hard sears and render out all that fat from that steak. Now, here we are with our well-rested culotte, picanha, top sirloin. You can see some of the moisture starting to come out of it. That's good. But what we're doing really, that salt, not only is it seasoning it, it's really helping to harbor most of the moisture inside of this roast. Now, I say roast because it is in fact a roast. It is one probably 2.5 pound piece here. This is my preferred method to buying picanhas or culottes. The main reasoning is the value to the cut. Not only can you slice into steaks, you can cube it up, you can stir fry it, you can put it in a crock pot. It's a very versatile cut of meat. It's got a lot of great flavoring to it, and it's more cost effective to buy it in this form rather than having your butcher cut it down once more for you. And this way you can figure out what size steaks you want. Everybody's a little bit different. My wife prefers a little bit of a thinner cut. I like, like 1.5 inch kind of cut. Now into cutting the steak. It's a weird shape, it is, we're not gonna hurt its feelings. It's kind of weird, it's a triangle. But the idea is for this particular method is we're gonna cut with the grain, which is a very, illogical thing to say when it comes to cutting meat. Typically you wanna slice against the grain, but since we're gonna be cooking this again and we're cutting this into steaks, we're actually gonna cut with the grain this way. So then when we go into cooking it and slicing it after we rest it again to go on the plate, we'll go against the grain for us to eat, okay? So here we are, triangle cut. You can see the grains going this way. I'm just gonna take this knife and I'm gonna look at it, try to figure out exactly, like I said, what kind of size we want. I'm gonna cut off this little tip here just so I can get like a little bit of a starting measure. And like I said, I'm gonna go about 1.5 inches thick. And again, once we get out of those end cuts, you'll see them start to kind of take a little bit more shape and kind of be a little more fluid as far as how big they are, evening in sizes. Now you have this steak. Kind of like, in this form, like almost resembles a shallow strip steak. That big, beautiful fat cap. Look at all that marbling on the inside. Like, that's gonna be a great cut to pan sear. Again, we're gonna start pan searing this with the stamps down because we're gonna render out all that fat in that pan, and we're gonna allow that steak to cook in all that beautiful fat. First things first, we're gonna bring our sheet tray back. We liberally season the outside. Now we're going to season a little bit of the inside. Make sure it's all nice and seasoned all the way around. This last end cut, I'm just kind of taking off some of the extra fat around and just to even up the steak. Again, all this stuff can be utilized in different roasts. Never throw anything away. All that fat can be taken off and rendered down and whipped into some type of tallow butter. All the meat can be put into a stew, a roast. You can grind it. You can do whatever you want with it. All right, so here we go. We have essentially 4 steaks out of this. I mean, look at that big guy right in the middle. Now we're going to take just our Diamond Kosher salt, and we're going to liberally season these guys. And there we go. Now, we'll let those things rest just for a moment. We're going to heat up our pan, and then we're going to start grilling some steak. Typically, I tell you to oil your pan a little bit, make sure it's nice and seasoned, but these picanhas have such a beautiful fat cap on them. They're going to season and oil our pan for us. So we're going to start all of these picanha steaks right on that fat side up. You hear it immediately starting to sizzle, and what that's doing is just rendering out all that fat. And then eventually that pan will be just, cooking with its own natural butter in there. All right, I'm just gonna let those guys start to render out a little bit. Now I tend to try to, you don't want to overcrowd your pan, so make sure that you're not, doing too much. In theory, I'm like, I can fit these all in here, but if you don't give your steaks enough room to cook, you're not gonna be able to get an even cook on them. So I'm gonna let these guys sit here for a couple minutes on this fat side, and I'm gonna show you how we make our chimichurri. The first step for this recipe is we're gonna blanch Ohio fava beans. Boiling water, salt like the sea. We're gonna take our fava beans here, let them swim in that salty water. As those things are blanching there, I filled up a little bit of bowl with some ice water. What we're gonna do is pull these fava beans out of that boiling water into this ice bath after about 2.5 minutes. While we're waiting for that to happen, let's go over the rest of our ingredients for our chimichurri. Heart of chimichurri, herbs. Lots of cilantro, 1 bunch of cilantro. Parsley, lemon. We're going to use both the zest and the juice. We have some Fresno chilies. We got some garlic, shallots, and then on this side we got a little bit of rice wine vinegar, fish sauce. Highly recommend, but optional. It just gives you some more natural umami richness to your dish, and a bunch of fresh pressing of olive oil. Take out our beans now that they've been in here. Put them in that ice water. Okay. They don't have to be completely cooled down in order for you to peel them, but the trick is really just like kind of pull a little part off the side and just pop them out. And then you can see the difference of how bright and green those fava beans now are. All right, we got everything in here. We are gonna hold off on our fava beans until the end. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna do a couple splashes of fish sauce. Again, that's an optional thing. I truly love the way that this fish sauce comes through in going up against a very meaty steak. A little bit of rice wine vinegar. I want this to be, hearty and a little like soupy when it comes to the olive oil, because I want to be able to drizzle it all over. I want to be able to kind of incorporate everything in. I want to be able to like sop up my steak a little bit in it, all the little drippings on the bottom. All right, now we got that good consistency. We're gonna add all these fava beans in. Man, look at how bright, fresh that is. It's awesome. It's summer if I ever saw it. All right, now that we got that chimichurri going on, it's marinating, for the rest of the time we cook our steaks. Let's get back to it. These guys have been rendering out now for a couple minutes. You see, look at that. Look at that beautiful, almost crispiness on that fat. That's what you get from letting them rest a little bit, making sure that they come up to room temperature before you pan sear them. You can kind of see in this pan all those drippings that are in there now. It was a dry pan, now it's full of that fat that's been rendering out. That's gonna allow us to cook those steaks real good. Now that we got those fats seared, we're gonna flip these steaks on one side and do absolutely nothing. Everybody wants to fidget, they wanna go back and forth. It's You're like a kid in the candy store, you got to touch everything. Don't touch your steaks. Let them go. They're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to run away. You don't need to worry about what's happening. Allow them to continue to cook in your pan. You know, to get a really good medium rare, you're probably going to want to go about 3 to 4 minutes on each side, depending on how thick your steak is. These two pieces were, you know, roughly about the same size, so we're probably going to do about 3 minutes on each side. All right, it's been about 3 minutes now. I'm going to flip these steaks. Oh, man, look at that. Look at that crust. Doesn't get much nicer than that. Yeah. That fat on there, that crust. Now you're going to fidget them a little bit. You're going to line them up in your pan, you know, kind of swirl around all those fat drippings that are going on. Make sure they're all getting in all those crevices. And then what we're going to do is call a rocher or a base. We're going to get a bunch of freshly smashed cloves of garlic, throw them in that pan, let them get all up in that good juice, all that good fat that's coming out of there. We're going to take knobs of butter. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. I'm going to use an entire stick of butter in basting these steaks. I know it sounds excessive, but I promise you, it'll be worth it. I mean, come on, is there a more beautiful pan than a bunch of steaks cooking in garlic and butter? And again, we put these steaks in, we set them for 3 minutes on the first side, we flip them, let them cook for about a minute and a half, and then threw all that butter and garlic in and really just like kind of go into town on this. All right, let's check and see what those bottoms are looking like. Oh man, look at that. All in there. All right. Baste these guys a little bit here. You can tell they're starting to get pretty good because all that garlic's starting to get nice and caramelized. All aromatic in there. All right. We're going to take these steaks now and put them onto our resting rack. Yeah, beautiful. All right, and I'm actually going to take this, turn off my stove, and I'm going to take a little bit of this butter and this garlic and kind of let that just hang out over there. You know, let that just kind of, you know, let it make friends. You know, it's all right. All right, now again, the biggest key is resting a steak. How long do you say? You're gonna think I'm ridiculous, but we're gonna let these steaks rest for 4 to 5 minutes. All right, now that our steaks have rested, we're gonna go ahead and slice these guys up. Look at that. How perfect is that? Man, it's like I've done this before. It's weird. Again, we cut with our grain the first time around, so now we can cut against our grain to make that beautiful, perfect piece of steak. I mean, my goodness. Chimichurri. It sat while we finished cooking our steaks. It's marinated all. Look how bright and green it is. It's like a perfect part of summer. Like this is like backyard barbecue time. This is, you know, Father's Day specials. Look how bright that goes against that meat. All right, now we got it there. It's all nice, pureed around. I'm actually gonna take a little bit more olive oil. I think this is another trick. Finish it with really good olive oil. And then always finish any type of meat with really good sea salt. This is nice Landic sea salt. We use a lot of Malden sea salt, but you want that big, bright, flaky, large bits of salt. The idea is that, you know, you've seasoned your steak. We know, like we said, we've seasoned pretty heavily, but when you get that perfect bite of that like nice big piece of salt flake in there with that that fatty, meaty richiness, it's just like heaven. You know, makes your eyes roll back in your head a little bit. You kind of do a little sigh, you sway. You're like, oh, it's so good. That's what happens when that salt hits that meat. And there you go. Father's Day grill special, hands down. Winner all the time. Can't go wrong. Picanha steak. pan-seared or grilled with a fava bean chimichurri. You're going to love it. For this recipe and more, go to ohiobeef.org.